everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lonimi Maseko, and on this channel, I aim to help you enhance your quality of life. So, the topic of today's video is winning the war in your mind. Now, if you could rewind to the little girl I was years ago, I wish that I had a video to tell me how to navigate the struggles of my mind and battling so many things internally, because I don't know about you. I don't know, maybe you're somebody right now that's watching this video and you're struggling internally with a lot of thoughts, dark thoughts, intrusive thoughts, and you don't really know who to confide in. You don't really know how to open up to anybody. You may have family members, but maybe you're not really close to them, or maybe friends, but it's not that you guys have a dynamic where you've been able to go in depth. So I would definitely say that if that's something that you're going through, you're not alone. Um, I think that I had to make this video because it was very significant, especially in a time where there's a lot of division, there's a lot of chaos around the world. When we're talking about politics, for example, it's a very, very divisive world. Um, and when you are somebody that's going through a lot mentally and you're struggling mentally with thoughts that you don't know how to control, then when all of that negativity, external negativity, kind of like surrounds you, it's very, very hard to internally process the mental struggles that you're going through. So if that's something that you can relate to, then you've come to the right place. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video as well is because I am going through a season right now where I'm battling with my mind. And I think that something that triggered that was, being online. And I think that's something that we don't really talk a lot about in the community. I think that when you are somebody that is battling with your mental health, right? And you sometimes tend to scroll online and you scroll through a lot of videos. If you're on YouTube and you scroll, right, the algorithm would feed you videos that pertain to what you're going through. So let's say, for example, going back to the topic of politics, let's say that it's a season of politics, elections came up, and it's very divisive, right? And the person that won the elections, the incumbent, won, but there's a lot of negativity because the half of the people that didn't vote for that incumbent are very angry, and they the algorithm, therefore, if let's say you don't agree with a person that won, right, an election, then the algorithm will feed you that content that's related to the anger that people feel. And although it's good, like, I do want to say that it's very healthy to feel your emotions. If something doesn't go your way, it's completely healthy to feel your emotions. But I think that it's very unhealthy when you sit into that like web of emotions and the algorithm just keeps feeding you negative energy on top of negative energy. So I think that that's something that recently happened to me, not necessarily in terms of politics, but I think I'm currently going through a season right now where it's not really a happy season, but it's not really a sad season either. I'm in a waiting season where I feel like I'm being prepared and by God. And I think that I was online, consuming content, and the algorithm just showed me this video that honestly was very, very, I'm not going to go too much into details, but it was very hard for me to process. And after watching it, it affected my mental health even more. So I had to make this video because I feel like if you're somebody right now and you're struggling with your mental health, and the battle of your mind and the battle for your soul is something that you've battled with for pretty much your entire life, I wanted to make this video to highlight that please be careful with the content that you consume online. You never know. Sometimes these videos, they don't plainly indicate what they're going to talk about. It can be very abstract, but once you click on those videos, it turns into this like web of information and dumping that honestly, had you not watched the video, you would have been in a much better headspace. So I think we need to be very, very careful, especially with YouTube and algorithm and social media and algorithms. Like, let's just aim to be very, very careful with the content that we consume. So that's definitely one thing that I would give as an advice for somebody that's like battling with their mind and you want to know, how can I win this battle? Well, first and foremost, if you're going through this war of the mind, right, I want you to know that you are not alone. You're not alone. We're in this together, right? And just like the little girl who desperately wished that she could see a video like this when she was younger, I hope that this video can give you that reassurance and comfort in knowing that you're really not going through something alone, especially when it comes to having thoughts in your mind that you feel are so hard to control, dark thoughts, thoughts that you don't even know how to open up about these thoughts to maybe, let's say, a therapist or even a friend or family. So, the second tip I want to give you about how to win the war in your mind is to recognize first and foremost that the thoughts are not you. So, we live in a world, in a collective consciousness, I would say, where things are very energetic. A lot of people think a lot of things. And because we live on this planet, there's a spiritual realm that we don't see where a lot of thoughts and a lot of the things we think into the collective consciousness can traverse our spiritual bubble, I would say, right? A spiritual bubble for me is something that kind of protects you from other energy that could be negative, right? But if we don't constantly protect ourselves, pray, and um, consume content that is pure and light, what ends up happening is that those thoughts in the spiritual realm can affect our spiritual bubble, right? And I think that that's something that we need to recognize when we have thoughts that traverse our mind. And let's say it's a thought that you never really thought about, but out of nowhere, those thoughts started to invade your mind and you panic, you fear, and you instantly ask yourself, hold up, if I'm feeling those thoughts, am I those thoughts? And I'm here to tell you that you're not. You see, dark thoughts, and I'll give you an example. Let's say one of a dark thought that you're struggling with is that you're not good enough, and that, let's say, you never experience a romantic relationship, right? And you see that your friends around you, they have that and they're experiencing that, but you're not really experiencing it. Dark thoughts can say, oh, nobody wants you. You're so ugly. You're pathetic. Who will ever love you? You're too difficult to love. So that's a dark thought that you never thought about, but it enters your spiritual bubble. Because we tend to fear and we tend to isolate, um, maybe that's not the tendency, but I don't know about you. Maybe you're watching this and maybe your tendency is to isolate as an introvert, right? Those thoughts, if you don't release them by talking to somebody that you trust or talking to a therapist about it or journaling, what ends up happening is the thought, you would start to identify that thought as your own and claim that as your own identity. But it is not you. Those thoughts are not you. There's something that my sister once told me that really honestly changed my life. So there was a time when I was going through something and I was telling my sister about how I was battling with a lot mentally. And when I told her some of the dark thoughts and negative thoughts I was thinking about or that were traversing my mind, she said something that really stuck with me forever. And she said, "Don't let these thoughts define you." And I can't tell you how hearing that was incredibly liberating. You see, when we know that we have a God that loves us so much, right? And He is there to protect us and He would never forsake us. There's so much liberation in knowing that it's only through God that our identity is found. You see, the world can dictate who you are as a person, the type of job that you should have, the type of status, social status you should have, the type of money you should make, the type of places you should visit, the type of social capital you should acquire. That's what the world would dictate you should have. Or even sometimes the world wants to even go as far as to dictate how we think. And if we don't have an anchor, if we don't have a solid ground to help us remember who we are, what is our purpose on this earth, before you were even born, what was your purpose? Why were you on this earth? Why did God bring you on this earth? And let's say if you're not somebody that believes, right, asking yourself what is your purpose, why were you brought on this earth, it's very helpful. Because if we don't ask ourselves those type of questions, society would dictate who we are, what we should think, and how we should act. So when my sister said, don't let those thoughts define you, that was incredibly liberating. And I hope that this can somewhat help you in your journey. Because if you have thoughts, dark thoughts, that they could be even darker than the example I gave, and there's no judgment here, right? Thoughts to me are like, let's say, the ocean, right? There are so many dirt that can be thrown into the ocean. And then what happens? The current causes it to be washed away. So water never holds on to negative particles. The current's nature is designed in such a way that it's very regenerative, right? So those negative or those dirt uh, substances that were thrown into the water or the ocean, they will wither away in the water. So similarly, look at your thoughts that way. Like if you have negative thoughts on top of negative thoughts and you don't know how to put a stop to it, the first thing to do is to not try to put a stop to it. Be observant and let it wither away, because they're like a cloud. It's like a cloud. There's a dark cloud that passes and then it leaves. The third tip that I can give about how to win the war in your mind is, if you're a believer, if you have faith, one of the things that honestly helps me tremendously, especially when I'm going through a season of mental struggle, is the first thing I do when I wake up. I don't go on social media. I don't do anything else. I just switch on worship music. So worship music is incredibly fulfilling for my soul. It's like the food for my soul that I need when I wake up. So as soon as I wake up, I do my morning routine. I shower. I will be blasting worship music, and that really helps me to start the day on a positive note and on a motivating note, right? So that's something that really helps me. And then the fourth tip I can give is journaling. So the thing is, sometimes, I don't know about you, therapy can be pricey, right? And when you're somebody that you're going through a lot and you don't necessarily want to pay somebody to talk about your thoughts, um, journaling can be the perfect alternative. Honestly, journaling is about releasing all those thoughts that you hold captive in your mind, right? And if you don't have the courage to talk about these thoughts to a loved one, or if a friend, or somebody that you met, right? When you journal your thoughts, it's incredibly liberating, guys. I cannot stress this enough. I've been journaling for years, and I can tell you how journaling honestly is one of the things that saved my life, right? So when you journal, what does that look like? If you want a more comprehensive step on ideas on how to journal, Let me know in the comments below. But I think one simple way to start is to just let all the thoughts in your mind out. You don't even have to structure them. Just let it out. What are you thinking about? What's causing you turmoil? Why are you in pain? Why are you suffering? Why don't you love yourself? Ask yourself those questions when you're journaling. And even if you're the type of person that says, honestly, like, I don't know what to write, I don't know where to start, believe me, when you start to put a pen and a paper together, or you start to journal on your phone. I personally use my phone. I type my journals on my phone on the Notes app if you have Apple, or if not, that's okay. You can simply take a notebook and a pen and just journal all your thoughts. And every time you journal, by the end of your notes or your entries, journal entries, mark the date. And why this is incredibly significant is that, let's say right now, today, you're going through a lot mentally. A year from now, the future you, when the future you will look through your old journal entries, they would be amazed by the significant progress you made over the past couple of months. It's like you wouldn't even recognize that this person in the past wrote that journal entry. So that's the power of journaling. Like, the person today, you would see all your problems and all the negativity, all the dark thoughts in your mind. But as time goes on, like the saying, time is medicine. The future you will look back and say, wow, I can't believe I went through that and I overcame that. So, the last tip I want to give about winning the war in your mind is to pray, or specifically, do a prayer request. So, if you have faith and you believe, something that personally helps me when I'm going through dark times is that basically dark thoughts, they thrive in isolation, as I was mentioning earlier in this video. So when you isolate, it gives room for darkness to feed into that negativity. And misery loves company, right? So when you keep consuming negative content that feeds into that negativity and that dark headspace, it can be very hard to open up to your loved ones, or it can be very hard to tell people around you that you're going through a lot of difficult internal struggles. So the number one thing that helps a lot is, I personally, for example, what I do is, if I'm going through a season of negative thoughts and dark thoughts, I will instantly text my mom, because my mom, she doesn't live where I live. So what I do is I'll text her and I'll say, "Hey mom, I need a prayer request. I'm going through a really difficult season in my life right now. I'm experiencing dark thoughts." I don't really go into detail, but reaching out to my mom and asking for a prayer request, what it does is that it holds this level of accountability, right? So it allows you to know that, okay, you externalize this thing that you're going through, right? And you have somebody, a loved one, that can know about the struggles you're going through, rather than isolating yourself and your loved ones don't know. Because I'm telling you, when you have thoughts and you isolate, darkness feeds into those thoughts, and it allows you to it doesn't allow you to open up, and then it's something that you think about, and it grows. But by confessing to your loved one that you're going through something, you're struggling with your mind right now, and you need prayer, what it ends up doing is it allows light to penetrate through that darkness, thereby extinguishing the darkness, right? So that it's the same thing when you reach out to, it could be, if let's say you're not close to your mom or you're not close to your parents, it could be you reaching out to a sibling and saying, "Hey, I need prayer. Can you please pray for me? I'm not going to go into details, but right now I'm struggling with my mind," right? And that usually can be significantly helpful. Or you can even, yeah, like, reach out to somebody that you trust, right, in your circle, and ask for prayer without necessarily going into detail, right? And if you want to go into detail, you can as well, right? I'm just trying to give a tip for somebody who, if you're like me personally, I don't like going into details about the thoughts I go through, because some of them are just so dark and it's between you and God. And when I reach out to a loved one asking for prayer without going too much into details about the thoughts I'm going through, and they don't really ask, they respect my wishes and they don't really go into detail. Honestly, it allows me to breathe. I can still get a prayer from them, and I don't feel like this pressure to tell them about the thoughts I go through. But I also encourage you, like, if you trust the person that you love and you want to tell them about the thoughts you're going through, make sure it's somebody that you trust and you can open up to them. And that can also be incredibly beautiful and liberating. So, if you made it to the end of this video, I'm so glad you did. I hope you know that we're on this journey together. This battle for the mind, it's not a battle that darkness will win, right? You have already won this battle in your mind because you are so loved and you are so protected and you are chosen. And if you feel sometimes like you're alone and that nobody understands you, I'm here to tell you God understands you. I do. I understand you. And I hope that this video reached you and that through this video you can maybe apply those tips and it can somewhat help you navigate some of the things you're going through. So thank you for watching all the way to the end. I love you, and I'll see you on the next video.